What if I composed an original film score as a brass quintet? Yes.
Brass quartet?
Quartet. Well, no, I'm
Now,
having
are you
two
going to
trumpets,
steal
two
it
trombones, and
from other classical pieces, like
Eric,
certain?
Patrick, Jamie, me, and
Good morning. It's Monday, April the 16th. This is MUT 313, spring 2018. And it's shut. Okay, now we can speak freely. Set theory. We did 12-tone theory the other day. That went quickly. Now, set theory is not for mathematics. If you've ever studied mathematics, the first week of class always involves sets. From kindergarten to calculus, it's always sets. So what we're thinking about in set theory, and it's not something I've thought about so much lately, but I do kind of do things instinctively. What we want to do is take a collection of notes and define them some way, and then find connections that can be collected of the notes. Oh, that maybe didn't make any sense. But let's take a really simple example. And we're going to use note names starting on C, but we're going to use numbers that represents the letter names and the intervals above the basic note. Okay, so it could be transposed to anything and still use the same numbers, if that makes any sense. All right, so let's take interesting collection of notes. All right, so say through either melodic or harmonic devices, this structure became kind of a French sixth, actually. Maybe we could have more than one name for it. It does sound kind of French sixthy. But we could have arrived at it any number of ways. Okay, so we've collected the notes, and we'll take an example from the Schoenberg that we looked at a week or so ago. But anyway, let's look at the notes and put them in the smallest order possible. Let's take an easier example, and then we'll come back to this. Let's take this example here. Okay, we have these three notes. Okay, and there's a lot of things, ways you could incorporate that. So let's take what's called normal order, okay? Prime form normal order. And what that means is to take the notes and put them in the smallest intervals possible. So, if this is like half step, right? So we assign the lowest of the notes 0, and then our set would be 0, 1, 2. Do you understand how that set is 0, 1, 2? Okay? That's an important concept. Now, this first thing sounds like this. The second thing sounds like this. They sound different, yes?
Yes.
But if we make a set analysis of this, what is its prime form normal order? It is also O, 1, 2. So those two sets of notes are equal in set theory. Let's take another funny example. Now, we want to go from the smallest interval to the largest interval. So, I think we have to keep it like this. So that would be O, 4, 7. Can we agree that that would be 047? What would the minor triad be? Hmm?
037.
Oh, 5-7.
This is not 047. Let's take this, what would be the smallest ordering of intervals? 0, 3, 7? Yes? Would that be the smallest? Or would 0, 3, I think it's 037. So if you take it in the smallest order of intervals, that's the smallest interval, and that's the next smallest interval. Here, this would be the smallest interval, and that would be the next smallest interval. So in set theory, those two are equal. Okay? Because it's all about the interval content. So inversions, retrogrades, all of that are the same because they have the same interval content. So this would be a fairly difficult thing to determine the content on. So how would we go about doing it? Trying to put it in the smallest order possible. And can you do that? Well, if the F were here, that would be closer, right? So, one thing, F natural and F sharp. C and D are close, yes. So, C and D, and then A flat. That's probably the normal order. Now, how can you check yourself? Look, you can do it on the internet. Get a set generator, type in your notes. You can type in 12-time generators too. So, what do you think this would be? Well, O, 2, 5, 6. What's A flat? Okay. 0, 2, 5, 6, 8. What if we went the other way? That would be O, 2, 3, 5, 8. 02358 or 02568? Which do you think is correct? Well, it's 02358, isn't it? Oh, well, that's not right though, is it? Yes, it is. 02358. So actually, A flat would contain, so what of all of these is the closest outside interval?
In the top one or the bottom one?
Well, they're both the same, but in this, I'm saying, well, maybe this isn't the proper ordering. Maybe the A flat down here is the proper ordering. What I think I'm gonna go with that. 0, 2, 3, 5, 8. Now, what does this set theory do? Well, it can find relationships between different harmonic and melodic areas in the piece. And we use it to analyze atonal non-dodecaphonic music. Dodecaphonic means 12-toned, so non-dodecaphonic atonal music. Could you use it to identify tonal musics? Yes, there are people, Howard Hanson of Eastman fame did set theory on tonal music, and then later in the 70s, Alan Fort began doing set theory for atonal music. Now, when you talk about set theory, you talk about inversionally related things and relationships within sets, and what is finally generated is pages and pages of possible sets. So your analysis would look like determining those sets from that book and defining it in the piece. Now, if you go and look at in the library or online of any perspectives of new music or any of the modern music theory journals, you will see analysis with set theory in it. Why don't we take a look at what's on the internet involving this. Oh dear, it's locked. And take you through. So the first thing you need to know is you don't want to search set theory. You want to search set theory music. Otherwise, you will get into a very mathematical thing. Shall we overhead it?
I believe so.
Anybody want to hear a perfect fourth? Anybody? Word! Oh, we need a scream. This is scream 2. Scream 4.
In the key of the or at least is that in the is that right?
Okay, there's plenty of wiki stuff on this, so
I just think of it like, playing my C scale in the key of D, or like playing my C scale in the key of C. That's just the way I think about it. But I don't know if it's like C dominance.
This video is a brief introduction to musical set theory. We use groups of notes to make music, and usually this isn't all the notes that we can use. We use just part of those notes, a subset of those notes. For instance, on the piano, it's possible to play 12 different notes. All these ones, black and white. And then it just repeats. But we don't play all 12 of those typically, we just pick 7 of them in a specific order here, and that is called a scale. Here I've listed the way we move up in the scale by whole steps and half steps. Additionally, we have what's thought of as a beginning of a scale. It's the main point we come back to, the center point of everything, and that's called the tonic. It's the first note. Each of the other notes has a number for it too, because we think about it doing things and going certain places. This is the tonic and the supertonic, so it can start in whatever order we decide upon. Pick first or last. Each of these has a number for it. But in set theory,
okay, here we go.
we don't have any specific number. We don't have any specific first or last note in a scale. It isn't a scale, it's just a group of notes, and so it can start in whatever order we decide upon. So we don't have the C, for instance, getting this number 1 carat in a set, like we did when we had it in a major scale. It's just one of the notes in a bag of notes that we can use to make music with. What I have done though is below it I've labeled C as 0 to show the interval distance, how many half steps between this first note and the next notes. So between C and D flat, for instance, there's 1 half step. And between C and E, there's 4 half steps. Between C and F sharp, 6. Between C and G, 7. So down below this set, I've labeled the notes by how much distance there is between them in half steps. And this is called integer notation. I just use numbers, integers, to label how many half steps I've moved between the notes. Now, I don't have to have them start out in the exact same place all the time. I can just have the same relationship of intervals. Here, this half step, and here, this third, and so on. So I've taken all these notes here, C, D flat, E, F sharp, G, and I've moved them down by a half step. So now it's starting, instead of starting on C0, it starts on the last half step, 11. I've subtracted 1 from 1 half step. But look, goes to G, F sharp, E, D flat, as opposed to. So I can reorder these things, put them in any order I want.
Okay, we understand the basics, yes?
That being said, if I
Normal
want to
order.
see how a composer has manipulated notes and done stuff with them, if I want to see how the composer has put them in an inversion or going backwards, or how they've just played around with the notes, it's helpful to have a typical way of looking at them so I can use that as a point of deviation. This most typical way of looking at them is basically taking all the notes and scrunching them to the left so that it's most compact in its intervals at the left side. This ordering of notes is called the normal order, and I'm going to show you how to get that. So if we find a group of notes in the piece of music and we're trying to figure out its normal form, look at the group of notes and try to get it within an octave in ascending order. Here's a set of notes, and it's ascending, but the last note is too high, it's a D. So that's more than an octave above C. I've taken it down an octave, and now all my notes are ascending in order within an octave. Next thing I need to do is take the note I have in the beginning and put it at the end. This just makes it easier for the way the notes wrap around in the set.
I don't know why I would do that.
Next, I look to find the biggest interval I have within the set. And here it's a
Now I
major
do.
third as opposed to this
I
minor third
understand
here.
now.
And I reorder all my notes to start with the second note of my largest interval. So I start everything with the A sharp, and I just continue on in that order, wrapping around to the beginning of the set. So here's my A sharp, the second note in the interval. I start here, I have the B, C, I don't double the C and put two of them in there. And just keep on going. This is now my most compact version of notes in this set, from left to right.
Do we
So it's
understand
called
how
my
we got
normal order.
to normal order?
And when we find a normal order, we list the numbers of the intervals inside of these brackets here. Looking at things like this though, starting at 10 rather than 0, can be a bit confusing looking. It looks like a transposed group of notes. So instead of doing that, we often put it starting at 0. We move it around until the whole thing is up, so it starts at 0, or down, so it starts at 0. And we also have to do something else. We have to make sure that this version of things isn't larger than its inversion. We'll look at that more later. But for now, for all intents and purposes, if we want to get the most compact form, we take this normal order and we change it so that it starts on 0. We move it up or down, transpose it up or down, so it starts at 0. And then that's our prime form. Notice too, in prime form, it has parentheses around the numbers rather than brackets. So how do we go from normal order to prime order? Well, the first thing we need to do with the group of notes we have here is we need to get them to start out with 0.
Hello everybody, this is David Farrell talking about music theory once again. Today we've got set theory part
What happened to the
1.
rest of the other
We're
one?
starting our journey into set theory. We're going to learn some new ways we can talk about pitch and harmony, some different ways we can classify these things in melody, or like a scale that some of the things. Set theory has no limits, and that's one of the best things. Equivalence. That means that it
Okay, well, that has some that was almost interesting.
It was almost.
It's kind of like any theory. It's either too hard or too easy. Okay, so I like this explanation of prime form normal order. I should have been bracketing things. Let's see if that holds up for what we did here, okay? Let's see if we can do that. Let's just start the heck over. So what was the first thing that he said to do? Was put it in the tightest possible configuration. Okay? What do you think is the tightest possible configuration? Well, F can go down here. Let's make this a G flat, A flat, C, D. What do you think? Okay, so we're gonna do that, right? So now, I think the thing was to now find the smallest intervals. That would be here, yes? So 3, 7,
Hello?
9.
Yeah.
Owen. Are the numbers smaller on the inversion? What would the inversion be here? 0, 2, 6, 8, 10, or 9? 9. Okay, so this is our normal order. That's prime form normal order for those notes, which actually would be 5, 6, 8, 0, 2 would be the actual notes, right? And then that would be prime form normal order. So let's hear what that sounds like, because that's pretty exciting as far as I can tell. Still sounds the same. It still sounds like a French sixth. You may have that come up on certain graduate entrance exams, but it's going to be rare. The reason I bring it up was one of my students recently applied for Kentucky, and it definitely had set theory on that test.
Was it just an ankle?
That was a really pretty challenging test. I didn't really look at his work, but I'm sure he did well on most of it up until then. Music history part I can't speak to. That seemed, hard enough. Okay. Let's assign our day of reckoning. This is a class, a question I asked in sophomore class today. If, because we were talking about how long their piece had to be, if your quarter note equals 20 beats per minute, how many measures in a minute piece?
If your quarter note beats to 20
Beats per minute.
are you in 4/4 time?
How many do you want a minute?
Yes, you're in 4/4, I'm sorry, that's an important fact.
Yes, it is.
4/4 time, 20 beats per minute. How many measures in 1 minute?
As you have to
That's
say.
But then one of the drummers said, it'd be just one measure. And so we all decided that 420 was an excellent time signature after all. And we'll be playing all the, is that Thursday is 420 maybe?
Friday.
Yeah, like just play all of our music in or was it 20 over 4? Gosh, it's not even 420. Oh, my joke just failed miserably. Okay. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We got 12 of us. all of you get to choose your particular day unless you all want the same particular day.
I want Wednesday. Call it.
Wednesday.
Okay, Janie, Wednesday. Amber Lynn, Monday.
I think Janie and Amberlyn should pick teams like if this were high school
Don't.
kickball.
Yes. Let's do it.
I'll even go this Wednesday.
That's okay.
I think I have punch.
On Wednesday.
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 What's Wednesday?
I know I love you.
No, you don't.
No, I do.
Okay. Megan, you got an H in your name or not?
No,
She does in her last name.
I do.
She got a complicated ass last name.
I would like to be on the
That's the
list.
highest order of
No, you
thinking
can't be on my
Charles has done all week.
Ooh.
Damn.
It's Monday.
Right, you got the rest of the
Yeah,
week.
yesterday.
And yesterday was prayer and meditation, so that's not high. Okay, so I could do other Wednesday. Any other oparians?
I mean,
Olivia, raise your
Are
hand.
you in, do you want Wednesday?
Wednesday.
I'm an au pair. Does that count?
Can I be with Jamie and Megan?
Yeah, I'm
Got Olivia on
asking
my
you
team.
specifically which day you would like to be.
Team Soprano.
Oli-
Can I also be a team soprano?
I also would like Steven on my team.
I'm an alto, but I can strain to be a
Who
soprano.
said Olivia? I said Odedia. All right.
Wow.
That's all I got so far. I
I'll
know
be on Monday with
every,
Amberlyn.
everybody else has been choosing, but I've only written those names.
Wednesday.
I said Monday, or
Wednesday.
even this Wednesday.
I doubt mine will be ready by Wednesday.
Yes, Charles.
I'll be on Monday with Team Amberlyn.
Okay. All right, we don't want to double instruments
That's team fair.
unless we're over 4. So don't write for 2 horns. And don't write for yourself. Okay?
I'm gonna hit you.
What's a hermit?
I'll do Monday, sure. I'll get it done.
I love you. Sorry, I love you.
Wednesday.
Same.
Alex, did you choose Monday?
I did not. That's Wednesday. I'll go on Monday if I need to.
Oh, I like the swirl.
Huh?
I like the swirl.
You know, when I was in 4th grade last year, this is what I would draw this all day, every day.
It's very,
But in 5th grade, I got into LSD and I just Jalen,
Wednesday.
Alec,
Either way.
who else is left?
Eric
Wednesday.
and Anna Catherine. And
Erica.
They don't get to pick the days because
Put Anna and Catherine on Monday.
Oh.
You have a V-E-N or a P-H-E-N?
PH.
I lose.
yeah, I got Steven on my
You
team.
should know this.
Put Eric on Monday.
Put Eric on Monday.
Put Eric on Monday.
I'm not putting them anywhere.
another jersey.
Davin, did I put you anywhere?
I said Wednesday like 8 times, but
Wednesday is outnumbering Monday.
Because people are afraid.
Run through this stuff.
I'm so glad I'm not allowed to be young.
Does that seem better?
Oh my god.
It looks a little more divided.
More organized.
We will persevere. We will win.
Anybody else in here not spoken for? I think we're all here. I think that's all we have to deal with. So, 1 to 4 instruments, no, I'm sorry, 4 or more instruments, 1 to 4 minutes. Okay? No doubling, no keyboards, no guitars, no percussion, no voice. Okay? So we're going to write for, we got trombone, we got flute, we got horns aplenty, we have a clarinetist.
Which is really weird.
No, it's not. If you look at the band, there's none in there either. We don't have saxophone and flute. We have one or the other, right? I want to go with flute.
Yeah.
Is she playing
She
any
was a
of the band?
saxophone major for a
Okay.
while.
All right. So we'll add alto saxophone. I think she plays.
Yeah.
And trombone. We got multiple trombones, but we're only going to use one.
We have a trumpet that comes in.
What?
Trumpet.
We're only using one trombone, you use 2.
If you write more than 4 instruments, you may use a doubled instrument. But if you're writing for 4 instruments, you must use 4 different instruments. So, you know, it's, I could see, well, goodness gracious, I'm a professional composer. I could write in any of the ensembles, so it's kind of a stupid thing to even think of saying. Yes, I could write for many different ensembles, and you can too. Gosh, we got, I don't know what I'm gonna be able to get around to saying.
Oh shit, is that okay?
Have a wonderful day. I've really enjoyed attempting to teach set theory. Good luck.